Governor Kim Reynolds breaks from tradition ahead of the Iowa caucuses. 5 Republicans who want to be president squared off in their latest debate. And how necessary are debates in this society of instant information? We'll get to that this morning with former Iowa Republican Party Chair Steve Grubbs and former Rock Island Mayor Mark Schwiebert, a Democrat. Great to see you both. Let's get right to it and start with Wednesday night's Republican presidential debate. 5 of the candidates appeared on stage without Donald Trump once again. Political analysts see these debates as a battle to become the leading alternative Trump going into the primaries. Recent polling shows Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis are the leading contenders for that position. Here's how they responded when asked why they should be the nominee instead of Trump.
I think he was the right president at the right time. I don't think he's the right president now. I think that he put us $8 trillion in debt, and our kids are never going to forgive us for that. I think the fact that he used to be right on Ukraine and foreign issues, now he's getting weak in the knees and trying to be friendly again. I think that we've got to go back to the fact that we can't live in the past. We can't live in other headlines. We've got to start focusing on what's going to make America strong and proud.
If you look where we are now, it's a lot different than we were in 2016. And Donald Trump's a lot different guy than he was in 2016. He owes it to you to be on this stage and explain why he should get another chance. He should explain why he didn't have Mexico pay for the border wall. He should explain why he racked up so much debt. He should explain why he didn't drain the swamp. And he said Republicans were going to get tired of winning. Well, we saw last night, I'm sick of Republicans losing.
Well, we heard the candidates give responses similar to the first 2 debates about the issues. Haley and DeSantis didn't seem to hurt themselves in this debate overall. Which of them, though, you think made a better impression with Republicans on this question and for the overall debate? Steve, this is your party. You go first.
Well, they both did well. I would give a slight edge to Nikki Haley. I think she showed herself to be both strong on international issues and trustworthy on international issues as well as domestic. But having said that, here's the real key. Nobody expects any of these candidates to surpass President Trump in the polls between now and the caucuses. The goal is to keep him under 50%, and then to keep him under 50 in New Hampshire and South Carolina. And then over time, as this other group of Republicans drop out, they aggregate their support, the anti-Trump support, into 52, 55, 60% of the vote. So, all these people are saying, oh, Trump is 20, 30 points ahead, 40 points ahead. It really doesn't matter yet. It will matter if he's breaking over 50% in the Iowa caucuses, New Hampshire primaries, et cetera.
Mark Schwiebert, how did these 2 candidates kind of separate themselves, distinguish themselves on that question, and perhaps overall for Republican voters?
Well, I guess I'd have to say that I think both of them hit the nail on the head when they described Donald Trump. That's something a lot of us have been saying for some time, that he's weak on national defense, that he created a huge deficit for the country that we're living under now, and that the Republican Party regularly likes to decry, and yet they were responsible for it with the tax cut for the rich. And of course, it was interesting that at the debate, poorly attended though it was, and seemingly sort of a secondary event to the show that Donald Trump was trying to run halfway across town, it seemed like a continuation of what we've seen in Congress over these last several weeks, where the Republicans can't really get together even on agreement on who the Speaker of the House should be. It's almost a clown show, or someone might put it, a circular firing squad. They referred last night to each other as, I think Haley referred to one of the other candidates as scum. And then I think that person who was described as scum described the chairman of the Republican Party as being a loser and leading the party into being losers. So I have to say that this is not a party that inspires confidence, and the direction they're following, especially with their enfeebled leader facing 90-plus felony charges, is a party that really needs to do some self-reappraisal, because it's moving in a seriously wrong direction that threatens the welfare of our country.
Well, we'll see how the voters decide next year. Republican frontrunner in the party's national polls and the Iowa caucus, again, Donald Trump, who skipped the debate, this latest one, once again, he's missed all 3, and hasn't seemed to pay much of a price in the polls. And there's an argument to be made then that debates aren't a true indicator of how well candidates will do the job they're running for, rather just who looks better, sounds better, delivers the best one-liners, if you will. Kennedy Nixon debate, anyone? It's great content for people like me who stood out as I did just a moment ago. And Trump isn't the only one who's a no-show for debates or candidate forums. It goes on in state and local races, and just happened here in Davenport's recent mayoral race. How much do we really need debates anymore? Do they change people's minds, Mark Schwiebert?
Well, Jim, that's an excellent question. And ideally, debate should have the effect of drawing a distinction between the candidates' stands on positions. If you go back to one of the first debates, and it wasn't a presidential, it was a debate for the U.S. Senate, the famous Lincoln-Douglas debates, they were identifying what the issues were and how they distinguished themselves on that terrible issue of slavery. But it's become more and more, I mean, and I think in the Nixon-Kennedy debates, which are sort of the archetype for modern debates, that too drew distinctions between the positions of the two candidates. More and more, unfortunately, though, it's not so much a matter of identifying strategies as engaging in sloganeering. And that's unfortunate to the public. I think the debates still have a valid place, but they need to get back to what their original purpose was, which is allowing us to understand what the candidates stand for and what the alternatives would be if you chose one candidate versus the other.
Steve Grubbs, value of debates in today's world?
Well, debates are dramatically valuable, as we've seen watching the Republican candidates. But I have to get back to something that Mayor Schwiebert said. What I get it, Mayor Schwiebert's a Democrat. He's going to find fault with the Republican Party. But I have to remind him that his President Biden, is trailing Donald Trump and all of Trump's problems in 7 out of 8 swing states. And my Democrat friends, they just can't understand it. How could this be possible? And it's because when you ask voters, they know they were better off 4 years ago than they are today. And they want to go back to that. And so, Trump is not my first choice in the Republican primary, but I can tell you this, everybody recognizes that he did a better job than Joe Biden has done.
Well, I know this isn't supposed to be a debate, but I have to respond to that. Joe Biden has got legislation passed that's going to allow us to rebuild our nation's infrastructure. He's gotten measures taken that no president in modern history has been able to done to allow negotiation of pharmaceutical prices. He's maintained Medicare and Social Security. He's dealt responsibly with COVID. I think what we're seeing is the pernicious effect of social media, in particular of certain right-wing social media organizations that's selling the public on a bill of goods. And Donald Trump is a clear case of that. He's a con artist, and he's going to be a convicted felon. And it is, to me, a mystery how people could support such a candidate as that. But I think it does have to do with not being in the season yet when people are going to be choosing the president and getting real about what do they want in the White House. Do they want somebody who provides responsible leadership, or do they want somebody who's a con artist who gives in to people like Vladimir Putin, and now more recently describing Hezbollah, one of Hamas's allies, as being very bright people? I mean, this guy is a clown, and he doesn't have any right being on a national stage. And I think ultimately the American public will see that.
Yet he trails Donald Trump in 7 out of 8 states, and that's because he's completely opened up the southern border. He doesn't defend it. We have a nation that doesn't protect its borders. People who cut in line are getting in here in front of people who've waited in line for immigration for 5 years. And yet we're letting the people who cut in line come in, and the people who are patiently waiting, following all of our rules, paying all the fees, they don't get in. But if you cut in line, you get in now. And that's the Biden policy.
I'll go back to what Nikki Haley said and Ron DeSantis, that he talked about building a wall, but he never got it built. And he had no other policy for immigration, nor does the Republican Party at the national level. Immigration is seriously in need of reform, but it's going to have to be a bipartisan effort, and it means more than sloganeering on the subject of building a wall and making Mexico pay for it, which he didn't do.
Record-setting numbers are flooding across our border due to the Biden administration's lax policies. Everybody recognizes that, and the economy. It's just so much that's weighing on the American people, and this is Biden's problem. And when Nikki Haley or Ron DeSantis or Tim Scott are the nominee, or Trump, he's going to have a tough time getting reelected if he ends up being the Democrat nominee.
I don't have a problem defending the person who's got low unemployment in the country, with decreasing inflation rates, and with an economy that by everyone's estimation is coming in for a soft landing. Now, I know that the Federal Reserve gets some credit for that, but you've got to give a lot of credit to Joe Biden and the policies he's followed to put people back to work, to give them a decent income, and to deal responsibly with our role as a world leader, rather than simply building a wall around the country and pretending the rest of the world doesn't exist.
Let me step in.
Donald Trump does.